Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast is a 2023 mantra. I will not undermine myself. And I really do think this is a theme for this year. A lot of us don't realize how we participate in undermining ourselves every day. And before I go into this more, I want to read to you the definition of undermine. Erode the base or foundation. Lessen the effectiveness, power, or ability of. So when we undermine ourselves, we actually erode our own foundation. We take our own power away. We take our effectiveness away to change our lives today and our lives in the future. Often we start to undermine ourselves when we let the outside world define who we are. We let what happens in the outside world make us believe what we're capable of and what we're not. Sometimes we make choices that maybe weren't the best, but there comes a time that if we don't come to this moment, being our best advocate, forgiving ourselves for the things we didn't do or couldn't do, not being so hard on ourselves, and also having gratitude for the things we did accomplish. If we're not able to do that in the moment, we weaken our foundation. And we start to doubt ourselves. And when you doubt yourself in the moment, you're not creating the future that you want because you're not putting all of that power and effectiveness into the thing you really want the most. And this reminds me of a client that I had years ago who was a designer who didn't sign an agreement with his client. It was someone he knew for a long time, and him and his firm performed a lot of services for this client without pay. And when he asked for payment, the client said he was dissatisfied with the services, and they ended up in a tremendous lawsuit. And this caused my client a lot of financial hardship. And it really rattled him. And he became nervous about new clients, and he became nervous about different relationships, and he was always worried that they weren't going to have enough money to continue, and it really carried forward. And we talked about this issue a lot, and at the time, this client did not have a lot of money, and this designer really wanted the project. It got him some notoriety, it got him more referrals, but at the same time, it caused financial cash flow issues and a lot of aggravation. And so in the moment, there were good things and there were bad things. But the worst part is that this designer lost a lot of confidence. And he lost a lot of ability to take risks on project because he was so scared of what happened before would happen again. And he was really upset with himself. And we talked about it. There should have been a tighter agreement, and maybe he should have gone to him earlier to get the retainer. He possibly made a mistake in the past, and he was bringing it forward again and again and again, and not forgiving himself, not looking at the lessons and saying, there's nothing I could do about what happened. I cannot control it at this point. I learned my lesson. I have to move forward, and I have to keep being creative and keep taking risks because that's part of who I am. But instead, he undermined himself. And I get it. There are things that shake us to our core. But again, these are outside things. And if we let them in and stop believing in ourselves, then all those dreams and all those goals and all those possibilities, we're going to pursue them at 50%, at 60%. And we need everything that we have to love the people in our lives, to create the things that we want, and to make the world a better place if that's what our goal is. And I get this so deeply. I know I've discussed this before, but I entered into a settlement agreement and I am now divorced from my ex-husband. And recently I found out that there was an asset that I gave up during the settlement to get my home. I wanted to own the marital home. I wanted a place that my kids could live. I wanted to be able to stay here in the middle of New York City, my favorite place in the world. But recently I heard that this asset that I gave up has grown a lot and might be sold. And I was sitting there and all of a sudden I was overwhelmed. And I was counting all the money that maybe I could have made. And I was regretting my decision. I was undermining myself in the moment. And it didn't last long because I caught myself very quickly. I saw it. I said, you are going to undermine yourself. You have your home, the thing you wanted the most. I just had a beautiful vacation with my daughters. We were here. We had fabulous times. I had my dad's 90th birthday here. I work here every day. I look out in my garden. I'm so happy to have my neighbors. Why would I give that up? Why would I undermine myself? All I'm doing is not being thankful for the moment, not appreciating what I have, and not giving myself all my power and abilities to create something for me, for my family, for the people I love, for whatever I choose to do with my greatest power and energy. So what can we do? The first thing we need to do is we need to be aware of the stories that we are telling in our lives, of why we're not capable to accomplish our goals, why we don't feel sturdy, why we don't feel we have what it takes, why we're upset with ourselves with an action from the past. What have we not reconciled with? What are the things in this moment that make us believe that we are not worthy and we are not enough to live the life that we want to? It is the ultimate undermining. And yes, things could happen in the outside world that are not fair, but we choose whether we believe it or not. We choose whether or not we're good enough. We choose whether or not we're going to be at peace with everything that's happened to us before. We choose how we're going to step forward in this moment. And we choose the goals that we're going to pursue. And anytime we compromise ourselves, we beat ourselves up, we're not forgiving to ourselves, we're allowing other people's judgments to make us feel bad, and we're not honoring our true desires and goals, we are undermining ourselves. So wouldn't it be a beautiful thing this year if we could look at these things and commit to ourselves, commit to understanding why we think this, why we do this, and how we could be so much kinder and more loving to who we are today. When I think about my client who didn't sign that agreement, well, there was a lesson to learn. But to think that he is not going to fully engage in his creativity and create so much joy and happiness through his designs because he's carrying that mistake forward. It's hard enough that he had a lawsuit. It's hard enough that he didn't have the money. But that lack of wholeness within him, that's the real undermining. The outside world will always change. Situations will come, situations will go. There'll be lawsuits, there'll be agreements, there'll be things that happen your entire life. But it's that sturdiness inside that will determine whether or not you will achieve what you want. The outside world doesn't get to determine who you are. And we have to remember that everything that's happened to us, whether we think it was good or bad, has brought us to this moment. And anything that would have happened differently, we don't even know if we would be here. So as everything that's happened has brought us here, this moment and the unknown future gives us an opportunity to show up again differently. And remember, because the future is unknown, everything you think, everything you desire, everything you want still has the possibility of happening if you don't let your thoughts undermine you. You don't let the past undermine you. You stand here tall, realizing that from this day forth, maybe you could still have the life that you want. Again, we're so much harder on ourselves than we are on anybody in our lives. Every day, we all need to invest in ourselves, invest in our wholeness, invest in deep love for ourselves, and also invest in our dreams. We invest in our greatness. So again, the theme for 2023, I am not going to undermine myself. I am not going to take the past and beat myself up about it. I'm going to let go of everything that happened before this moment. I'm going to realize that the outside world does not determine who I am. I determine that. I'm going to stand tall. I'm going to look out into the future. I'm going to know that uncertainty's my best friend, because if I want my life to change, it has to happen in the unknown. I'm going to write down all my dreams and I'm going to take steps to make it happen. I have what it takes to live the life that I dream of. And the last most beautiful thing you can say is maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or A Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.